In this video, I want to have a look at sketching the gradient function or the derivative. So we've been given three graphs here, and on the number planes below, we're going to draw the gradient function. So if this graph that's drawn here, this function, is just called f of x, then what we're going to draw underneath is f dash x. That's our derivative. So we know that the derivative, or the gradient function, tells us the gradient of the tangent to the curve at any given point. So the first thing we want to look at here is we want to figure out where would the gradient of this curve be 0. And it would be this point right at the vertex there. So right at that point, if we drew a tangent there, it would be a horizontal line, so the gradient is 0. So just underneath on our number plane there, we're going to draw a dot on our x-axis. So we've lined that up straight underneath. We know that the gradient is 0, and since we're drawing the gradient, we're going to draw a dot there at 0. Now we need to look at whether it's positive or negative everywhere else. So because our line is sloping up to the right here, that means this whole section of the graph, right up until we get to that vertex, has a positive gradient. So we'll put some little plus signs up that side. We know that our gradient's positive there. Then it turns and starts coming back down, and because it's sloping up to the left on this side, that means this whole section has a negative gradient. So down here we've got our point where our gradient was 0. To the left of that, we know that our gradient is always positive, so it's going to be above the x-axis. And we know down here that our gradient is negative, so it's going to be below the x-axis. So I've just put a little line going up there and a little line going down here, so we know which way things go. Now, because it goes up and it doesn't stop being positive here, and it doesn't stop being negative here, it just continues going down this way, so the gradient's always going to be negative, and the gradient here is always going to be positive. So this is just going to be a straight line. I just had to go and grab a ruler. So we're going to draw in our straight line going down there. I just missed my point slightly, but so we could get more accurate about the angle that our line has to be on, but for now, because we're just doing a quick sketch, this will just be fine. All right, so again, if we look at this one now, if this is our function f of x, we're going to draw the derivative or the gradient function. So the first thing it's easiest to do, again, is just to find the points where the gradient of this curve will be 0. So that'll be its turning points. So it's going to be this point just here at this vertex, and then this point here as well. Because if we drew a tangent at those points, our line would be horizontal. So the gradient of the tangent at those points is 0. So straight underneath those, we're going to put a dot on our axes so that we know our gradient 0 at those points. And now we need to look at where it's positive and negative. So this section here, because it's sloping up to the right, that's going to be positive gradients. Now between these 2 points, it's coming down here, so it's sloping up to the left. So that's all negative gradients along there. And then to the right of that point, we're sloping back up to the right, so we're back being positive gradients again. So on this side of this point, we're going to go positive. Between the 2 points, we're going to go negative. And then over this side, we're going to go positive. So it has to come from up here, it has to come down, curve, and go back up. So what we're actually going to end up with is a parabola. Now again, we don't know exactly where the vertex is, but that's okay because it's just a sketch. All right, so that would be f dash x, our derivative. All right, now last one. Again, let's start off by finding the points where our gradient is 0. So that would be this point here, it would be this one here, and this guy down here. So we'll copy those 3 points down. One there, one just up next to the y-axis, and then one down here as well. Now to figure out where things are positive and negative. So over this side, our gradient there is negative. Between these 2 points, our gradient is positive. Then between the next two, it's negative again. And then on this last bit, our gradient is positive. So what we're going to end up with down here, our gradient needs to be negative, so below that axis. Between the next 2 points, our gradient was positive. So it's going to come up and curve and come back down. Then between the next two, it was negative. So it was going to drop back down below the axis, both of those. And then on this side, it's positive again. So we're going to almost end up like a curve that looks like this one. It's going to come up, down, and back up, but through different points. So again, we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it's just a quick sketch. So that, if this was f of x, would give us f dash of x. So that's 3 quick examples of how we can sketch the gradient function.